Teams Bridge is one of my favourite versions of the game. Now, unlike Pairs Bridge, where what you're doing is you're basically comparing if you could do better with your cards than, say, the other North-Souths, or if you were sitting the other East-Wests, what you're doing with Teams Bridge is you're seeing if collectively, as two partnerships, your side can do better with both the North-South and the East-West hands. So what I mean by that is basically, if we have a look at it, we'd think that if there was a game contract for North-South, so say that would be 3 no trumps making 9 or 600 points, if our teammates were playing those hands as East-West, they'd probably score minus 600 points if the North-South pair managed to do the same thing. And that'd basically even it out, and we'd say that we didn't do well or we didn't do poorly on that hand because it basically evened each other out or negative the score. So let's have a look at how it works when you score up a teams event. Now, first things first, fill in your scorecard as normal. Now here I've put in some scores. You'll see I've missed out a few columns. I haven't put in the opening lead or anything like that, but it's important that one person from each partnership does actually take scores. Then what happens when you come to what we call a score up, you're going to have 3 people who are quite important on the team. You're going to have the 2 score readout people, and they're the 2 players that have kept score. You can have more people keep score, that's fine, but you only ever want one person from each partnership keeping score. The next thing we have is what's called an imper. Now, what happens is we figure out the difference in our 2 scores, and then this gets converted to what's called international match points. Basically a numeric measure to, I guess, scale down what the difference in the scores would be. So let's have a look at how it would work. So I might go first, and generally I'd always go first with reading out, and I might say that my score on board 19 was plus 200. If my teammates then said, well, our score was minus 140, we could then know the difference was plus 60, and then at this stage what would happen is the person that was on imping, and that's a separate person altogether, they'd have a look at the imp scale, which will be on your scorebook as well, and they'd find out what was the difference in points, and here we fit into 50 to 80, so that would be imps 2, and this would be in our positive column. Let's say on the next one, board 20, and I'd go first and I'd say our score was plus 200, and my teammates might say, well, our score was negative 500. We'd then know the difference here was going to be negative 300 for our team. Again, our impers to work now. They have a look at what the difference in points is. Here it would fit into 270 to 310, and so that's going to be 7 imps. Now this time it's actually going in the minus column because that was bad for our team. In total, our team was actually negative. We'll go through the next one. I'd read out plus 50. My teammates might read out minus 50. Now in this case, the difference would be 0. We call this a flat board or a wash, where basically no one scores any of these international match points or imps. Then, for instance, we might have 3 no trumps, and I'd say plus 520. My teammates might say minus 520. Again, the difference would be 0, so no imps would be scored. 3 no trumps making 10, I'd say plus 630, and my teammates might say minus 630, and again our difference would be 0, and we can indicate that by doing a dash. Some people just draw a line through both columns or just don't fill it in at all. Then I'd say, for instance, plus 400, and my teammates might say plus 300. Here we both got positives, so this is pretty exciting. The difference would be 700. That's pretty big difference. Our imp would have to go across to the imp table and look at the difference in points, and that'd be 12 in, so that's pretty cool. Our opponents might have made an extra trick, and I might read out plus 110, but my opponents might say, or my teammates, sorry, might say they got minus 140. So our difference would be 30. That's going to be 1 imp, and that would be to the bad guys in the out column. Now, interestingly, if there was only a difference of 10 points, there's no actual difference in the imps, which we'll have a look at in a second. I might actually come back to this one and change this one. Let's say that our teammates came back and said minus 120. So this would be the difference between our 3 clubs and, say, for instance, them playing in 2 no trumps. Now the difference would actually only be 10 points here, and 10 points doesn't have any imps allocated to it, so it's still just 0 when it comes to our imps. For our last 2, I might have plus 600 and my teammates might have minus 600. That'd give us a difference of 0 or no imps to either side. And lucky last, I might have minus 50 and my teammates might have plus 100. So this now is going to be a difference of 50, which if we go over to our imper, will give us 2 imps. Then what we need to do is we need to tally up the total of imps. So here, my side would get 14 and the opponent's side would get 7. What happens is that this gives a measurement based on the difference in international match points. And then what happens is that this gets converted again to another scale, which is called a victory point scale. Now, the way a victory point scale is, it basically has the whole match out of 20 points. So a maximum that you could achieve is 20 points. If you drew with another side, you'd get 10 points each. And basically it adds gives you a numerical measure out of 20 as to how your side did. So for instance, if you got 17 VPs, it would mean that your opponents actually had 3 VPs or victory points for the match. And that's the final measurement that's used. Now, as you go through, what you'll do is you'll play against teams who are roughly doing as well as you, if we have enough teams to do what's called a Swiss. If not, it'll be more like a round robin where you'll play every team or close to every team. And what we look at the end is the total difference, basically in how many victory points each team scored. Now, a few things that I guess I will note. Sometimes what might happen is you might have a hand where, for instance, if my opponent or my teammates came back to me, and we'll look at board 26 where I'd said plus 600, they might come back and say minus 400. Now, if this happens, especially with game contracts only, it's normally an indication that we might have had the vulnerabilities around the wrong way. So on board 26, my teammates might have thought that the opponents weren't vulnerable when in fact they were. So it's really important to get those vulnerabilities right. And if you see something like plus 600 and minus 400 or minus 620 and plus 420, it's normally an indication that the vulnerability is going to be a little bit different and you'll have to check that. Now, what happens when you get into your next match, basically a record will come out and it'll go to your home table, as it's called, where basically you've got a home table where you'll sit north-south every single time. So your pair will sit north-south there and the other pair will go sit east-west somewhere else. And it'll come around with a scorecard for you for the previous round, and you can compare your score up to what scores are officially lodged. If there's any discrepancies, simply let us know and we will be able to chase them up. Now, just a few things that do happen with TeamsBridge as well. It's really important to get this score up, procedure right. One thing that's really critical is you go through and do the whole score up. You don't discuss boards as you're doing the score up. So what you do is you get the score up done, get your totals done, and then you actually discuss the boards later. Key thing is to have 3 people doing some work. So you've got 2 people reading out, which is 1 from each partnership. And you've also got somebody on the imps table. So their job is just to figure out how many imps that our side scores. You'll be able to figure out the total difference in imps quite easily. But what will happen is that it's a bit tricky to figure out the victory points, because what happens is that they're also decimalized. And it's normally best to just wait until the scores come out. Double check that your imps difference is correct as to what the official scores have. And if they're correct, what it'll mean is the victory points that you've been allocated are correct. If you would like a victory point scale, you will be able to get one at the competition. So that's not a problem at all. So this is how scoring up at TeamsBridge works. One other thing to mention is that when you do have the what's called the official score sheet come out, you will also have an extra column in this, and this is what's called the datums. Now, what this compares is how each of your partnerships did against the average of the field, and they'll be over to the side of your imps plus and minus column. And what it'll do is it'll give you an idea about how each partnership performed individually. I will say though that sometimes you need to take them with a grain of salt, because they aren't actually necessarily a true reflection. They do give an idea, but it might just be that, for instance, your opponents did something good, like your opponents might bid a slam contract that nobody else bid, and in that case you're going to do poorly on these datum things. So thanks for watching. I hope you now know how to score up at Teamsbridge. It is one of my favourite formats of the game. It's great to play with another partnership and be able to have that, I guess, communal sense, and also have a few more minds together to discuss boards. So key things to know: one person from each partnership does need to keep score. We need to have someone at the ready with an imps column, and just procedurally always do your score up before you discuss boards. You shouldn't even come out of a match saying I think we did well or I think we did poorly. Get that score up done before you discuss anything. Thanks for watching.